So I've already gone through the re-election of Matthew Guy as the leader of the opposition in Victoria, and unfortunately didn't record the VOD to upload to YouTube. So here we are again. Um, so I can upload it to YouTube. So for those who don't know, Matthew Guy is back. This guy right here, the guy, the lobster guy. He's the African crime gang guy. He's the mandatory sentencing guy. And he's the guy that led the Liberal Party in Victoria to an election crushing in 2018. And he is also the best candidate that the Liberals have, their best hope of winning re election in 2021 or 2022. um, so yeah, look, for me, very astonishing move from the Liberals. I know that Michael O'Brien wasn't a popular guy. I know that there's that meme of who. Um, but seriously, like you're bringing in probably the only Liberal that Victorians actually know and have already resoundingly rejected. So very interesting decision by the Victorian Liberal Party. I thought when I heard that he was back, I had to refresh myself on some of his idiosyncrasies. So I thought I'll go to his website, have a look around there. And there's I saw this little one here, Matthew Guy TV, and I thought, shit, yeah, all right, we're on. I gotta have a look at that. So I click into Matthew Guy TV. Unfortunately, it's a dead link. Um, what kind of man right here? Um, if I go over to like opinion, it's very odd that this is still his website, particularly as the leader of Victoria, because the last thing was in March 2017, and I guess instead of the guy claims that he's going to come back more positive, he's been humbled by election. We can actually take a look at what he was before, when he thought being true to himself and thought he was the case, that the fighting reality of daily life in Victoria was carjackings, home invasions, drugs, daylight robberies, live, it's blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the positive influence that the Victorian Liberal Party have brought in to deal with making Victoria. So something I try to do is, this is a pretty easy example. What is the politician actually saying? And part of this that they aren't saying. And the part that about this, Victoria is unsaying. Granted, this is 2017. Back in the Apex gang, that was that was the obsession was Apex gang. Yeah, so is where dead thing doesn't really go anywhere. In 2018, he's talking about Michael O'Brien's stuff. Just weird. I don't get. I don't understand how like his presence across virtually. The guy, the meme that the Victorian Liberals banned half of Victoria on Twitter. I don't understand how it's like propagate his message online. So that's for him to, I suppose, brighter minds than me have been at work. Um, so I had a quick question time yesterday. I have to say, almost immediately seemed to perform pretty strong. He how did he rapid um, rather than question time, which can be pretty dull. Um, see what else is floating Guysphere. This one coming in at just an hour ago. I'm going to skip ahead. Jeez, why would you, when you upload to YouTube, they've got it's a 18 press conference and like 3 minutes of it is will be here soon. How odd. Come on, social media. You better than that. Come on. I did the other day was I went to his initial see to the table that, according to the Liberals Party, I got from that to the five they put. He doesn't seem to. He doesn't finding anyway. I'm not going to tie to your account. Look, the main thing that I got in terms of policy commitments was that Matthew got to ending all percent. He referenced the national as the basis for my shit. I couldn't believe he was saying that. It's so absolutely wrong. National even still allows for, I think, half as many lockdowns. I saw it. There was an article on the Conversation about it. National plan conversation. So half as many lockdowns as the national plan. And so I just couldn't already, yes, undermining the national plan is undermining the government. It's not positive. It's not all of and that the aims are we want to be positive for the future, and their actions immediately are demonstrating that that's not actually of any interest to the Liberal Party in Victoria. So anyway, look, having like that into the from this morning today.
I'll give you a few. Oh yeah, that's pretty good, please.
Just make sure that's it. Street.
First time I've been asked to go to the left.
Come on, Victorian Liberal Party YouTube channel. We're 4 minutes into the video. Just cut it.
Thanks, folks. Today it's with a lot of pleasure that I'm announcing the first Shadow Ministry, and that is Matt Bark, who will be the new Shadow Minister for.
I think he said Nick Bark. Is that right? Nick Bark, MP. Be what he said. Rewind. And go back down to normal speed.
Okay. Thanks, folks. Today it's with a lot of pleasure that I'm announcing the first part of our new Shadow Ministry, and that is the new father of three. Matt's a father of one. His daughter, and I see the impact on kids and their mental health is profound. So we want to address this proactively and positively by putting students and their welfare at front and centre of the education portfolio. It's so important that we come out. We've got a government minister focused on just students. Many governments in the past have had minister for the teaching profession and teachers, which is great, but
he's still got his O'Brien pictures up. Come on, bro. Don't do that. Not listening to, unless you're very interested in that, get really quick. Prime is Matt. If you stop difficult. That's it.
It's also now time to focus on kids and students. I've made a lot of effort this week talking about kids' mental health, students' mental health. We put up a bill to the Parliament yesterday, which the government voted against. We've put up ideas over the last 2 days.
The government voted against the opposition bill? I'm shocked. How is this possible? How could they do such a thing?
We get counsellors into our system to help with the crisis that is affecting children. We need to tackle this proactively, positively, and head on. Having a shadow minister for students who will work glove with data minister for education is very, very important. Now, I know you'll probably ask me about what the government's saying. You've a minister for that. To me, that's very, very juvenile. Rather than saying, not a bad idea, wouldn't embrace it, not a bad idea, will embrace it, the government
absolutely hilarious coming from the leader of the Liberal Party. You know, great that idea, but at least I can see where you're coming from. What a crock of shit. They haven't said that once in their entire time in opposition. Not one single time. Where Matt, well, you know what? On this instance, honestly, we disagree with the government, but at least we can see where they're coming from. I think that there's like some value to what they're doing here. Like, no, come on, dude. Come on, dude.
I think Victorians are over playing politics with COVID, and particularly over playing politics.
Again, with absolutely hilarious from the Libs. Who's the one been playing politics with COVID in Victoria? Who's the one who stands out in a park with 800 flags on the soil and says Dan Andrews killed these people? Like, come on, dude. Holy shit. I understand he's like tried to draw a line in the sand, but at the end of the day, the 30 odd members of the Liberal Party in Victorian Parliament are the same. Michael O'Brien's still there. Like, he didn't just do that thing, he did it with the support of his party, and all the people who supported him then, okay, are now standing behind Matthew Guy. So we might have a new leader, but it's the same party. Just come on, dude.
Kids' mental health.
Seriously?
It's very silly of the government, juvenile even, to do something like that. More the point, I'm hesitant to keep talking about it, but, you know, with a government who's got a minister for infrastructure, minister for roads, minister for public transport, minister for ports, minister for anything else to do with infrastructure, to have 5-6 ministers in infrastructure, to then talk about having 2 ministers, 2 in education, is kind of a bit hypocritical on their part. But that aside, it's a bit juvenile. What we are doing today is proactively trying to solve a problem in children's mental health, and it's very important that we have 2 ministers in such a large portfolio area, from the teaching profession, from students to education in general. Now he's a former teacher, very experienced. So he is the kind of guy you'd want to give responsibility to something like this, student welfare. I can't think of a person for Victoria to having.
Now, something I will say about Matthew Guy and the approach that the Liberals have taken, I guess it's probably amplified a little bit since he's taken over in the last couple of days, but in general, them shifting focus to the well-being of students and, let's say, young people more generally, it's both politically clever because it reframes, I guess, the way that the government can talk about COVID. Now that they've almost been forced effectively to admit that there's a mental health impact, whereas probably before they weren't necessarily doing that. So it's good for them politically, but it is also good, I guess, in a more genuine sense, that they're actually bringing forward the idea that particularly children are actually doing it really tough in this time. I have no problem with that at all. I have a problem with a lot of the things that the Liberal Party have done in Victoria over the last 18 months to 2 years. But I guess shining a spotlight on children is not one of them. Where it does get a bit much is when all of a sudden we're expected to believe that of all the things that the Victorian Liberals have spoken about over the last few years, this is the one they genuinely care about. The rest of it has been, like I said, flags in the park and just all this kind of nonsense. And now all of a sudden they've got one good thing. So I just don't want to, I guess, give them too much credit for that. If you throw enough shit at the walls, some of it's going to stick, of course.
Charge of students and student welfare, and particularly coming out of COVID at mental health. I just think this is the right time to focus on kids' mental health. We've brought bills into the Parliament all week in relation to solving our mental health crisis. We have been focusing on this all week for an absolute reason, not to just criticise. We don't want to do that. We've got ideas, positivity, a way out of COVID that is sensible, that is common sense.
Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. He's talking about ideas, positivity, bringing us out of COVID, having a plan, so on, so on, so on. And that's all great. Hopefully he actually does have any of those things, and hopefully the Liberals can, for the first time in 2 years, actually be positive contributors to Victoria, rather than slinging shit, undermining the government, undermining health response, undermining lockdowns. So hopefully they can be all of these things that Matthew Guy is saying. I'm yet to see it. I'm not convinced. Hopefully I'm wrong.
And they can actually help Victorians get ourselves back on our feet, and more importantly, help our kids and their mental health. And that's what I'll have when we announce on Sunday, which will be the Shadow Minister for Students. So here is Matt Bark.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Matthew. When I was a
kind of
school
looks
teacher,
like a teacher, this bloke, doesn't
leader,
he?
I was a dad and as a member of Parliament, it was right to be a voice for children and a voice for students. So I'm really honoured and privileged to now be asked in a formal way to take on a senior role in Matthew's shadow cabinet. We all know, I certainly know as a dad and from my friends, from personal experience, that what we've been through over the last, 18 months now, has been so challenging for Victorian kids. We know the statistics and they're horrifying. There was another story in the newspaper today about a huge rise.
Jeez, guys, it was in the Herald. It must be true. It must be, right?
In accidental deaths and in injuries for Victorian kids. We're facing a mental health crisis. Students who've been stuck at home have struggled to such a degree. Right at the pointy end, we've seen that in the child protection system, there's been huge increases of even child deaths, certainly really bad outcomes for kids. At school, we've seen students go backwards, despite the great efforts of teachers, because no substitute for being back in the classroom.
All right. I don't want to listen now to just like a bunch of Liberal Party talking points. It's not that interesting. So I guess what I'll do to conclude my Matthew Guy is Back Take 2 LOL special edition is go through what I think are some of the defining features of Matthew Guy. Certainly his political legacy. So if we start with Matthew Guy, African crime gang. This is the guy saying, like, I think something that's really was awesome. Yes, there was the stuff like funny as well. You about Sudanese gang. I really, say gangs. It's just so bizarre. There is to be no idea. Is that Matt was giving children and the plight of children in Victoria scene. Gangs like Sudanese. That was his policy. Yes, from a policy more, I don't know, mandatory sentencing Matthew Guy. Mandatory sentencing is a terrible idea for a whole range of sex. Should some of these like sex offences, like who is against sentencing for child sex offences? Right? Says, you know what? I don't. Well, look, in general, as a flat blanket rule, doesn't matter. Like, oh, bro, 50, like, there's a 57% increase in Labor government sexual offences against children. What the hell, man? Oh, God. I don't want to read much, but and work in sentencing work as an option to keep people in prison. Let's say there was a right? Like previously, the judges now for my legal avenues and but like the difference between in terms of to execute my own case, my own defense. So cost absolute fortune, no, no, so on for the we're also fighting legal battles to keep them. And why man doesn't work as a judges the reason we don't want politicians, police, other arms decide we have a judge. The reason we have to educate, they look at the situation, go, what does this serve? And in my opinion, idea. And then the loss I mean, is kind of a practice in that yeah is here we go head and some crime blah blah blah. He didn't read if what the hell King Red White. It's just don't need to go into it too much. That's the gist of it. Anyway, thank you for joining me for Matthew Guy Take 2. I'll keep doing this in future. It's really good to get as much engagement as I have on the last couple of videos. So thanks to those watching me to keep doing it. And thank you. I'll see you next time. Peace.